start. 3, 2, 1.
Zero percent listings. Been a lot of buzz in the industry. Realtors are upset. Certain realtors are happy. Most realtors are upset, but a lot of people are confused about what kind of impact, if any, the 0% listing is gonna have. So let's explain a little bit what a 0% listing is. In the past, typically what had happened, at least locally on Long Island, is a realtor would go to list a property and they would list it at anywhere between typically 3 and 6%, but usually at 4%. They would keep 2% for their services and they would give out 2% in case an agent came in with a buyer and they would ultimately split the commission. Apparently the Department of Justice said they don't like it, they're not having it, this is not the way it's supposed to be. And essentially what is supposed to happen is you as the realtor who's gonna be listing the property is supposed to be billing specifically for your service. And then the seller has the option, if they want, to put additional commission out for an agent that is bringing in a buyer, but it is not required. Typically in the past, there had to be a number of some kind. It couldn't be 0, but now it can be 0, hence a 0% listing. So what you're seeing now locally is listings that are going out that are offering 0% or no compensation for an agent who is bringing a buyer. And that is essentially what a 0% listing is. So what kind of impact is it going to have on the market, if any? The truth is, we don't know. In my opinion, I think it's a great thing for the industry because I think it is going to greatly elevate the level of agents that are out there. You have to think about it. On Long Island in New York, you have roughly 30,000 realtors that are in the MLS system. 50% of those agents will not do a deal in 2023. Period. End of story. In my opinion, the cream is going to rise to the top. There's going to be a certain percentage of real estate agents, I would say 25%, that are just going to get frustrated with the entire thing and they're just going to leave the industry altogether when you combine that with the fact that the market is difficult out here. There's not a lot of houses that are being sold. Interest rates are rising. Prices are rising. Affordability is a huge factor. It's a very, very, very difficult market if you're an agent who's not savvy, who doesn't know how to wheel and deal, and who is not willing to go out there and essentially grow. The agents that embrace this and look at it not as a bad thing, but as an opportunity, because when the market shifts and changes and laws and rules like this come out, the agents that embrace it or the people that embrace it are always the ones that end up really capitalizing and making a tremendous amount of money. How are we going to use this to our advantage as real estate agents? So let's understand the dynamic here. First, what you have to do is both agents on both sides have to have a solid value proposition for either the buyer or the seller. I'm sure a lot of listing agents know this scenario and they hate it, where they're doing an open house, a nice couple walks in, says, I have a realtor, walks out, the realtor sends over the offer sheet, they get the offer accepted, the agent never shows up for anything else, you do everything, appraisal, home inspection, final walkthrough, whatever it is, and the agent walks away with half the commission. If I was a listing agent, there's pretty much nothing more frustrating than that. Listing agents are gonna have to have a real value proposition in order to get these listings, have it even heightened. Because what they're doing is they're essentially saying, hey, these are the fees for my service, not for the entire transaction. I'm not taking care of everybody, I'm taking care of me. So I, Charles Weinraub, I'm gonna be listing your property and I'm gonna be doing all these amazing things for you. Most realtors do this, I do this. And I'm gonna get you the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time with the best terms, and I'm awesome. And for that, I'm gonna be charging you X%. No one's going to know, allegedly, what that percentage is. That's gonna be in the black box. So the listing agents are not gonna be disclosing to the public how much commission they have available. So they can take it at any number. You could say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you have the option to offer commission out to an agent who's potentially bringing a buyer, or you don't have to. That's completely at your discretion. Do you wanna do that? And let's say they're like, no, I don't wanna do that. Let the buyer figure it out on his or her side. Okay, now the listing goes out. So if you're an agent that is working with buyers, what happens here? How are you gonna handle that process? How does the deals get done? How do you ultimately get paid? One thing that's gonna come into play that's gonna be very important is gonna be buyer-broker agreements. If you're an agent and you are running around in a 0% listing environment and you're working with buyers and you don't have a buyer brokerage agreement, I don't recommend that you do that. I think there's gonna be a lot of issues there. You as a realtor who's working with a buyer have to have a real value proposition. Why am I, as a buyer, going to sign an exclusive agreement with you as an agent to represent me, bringing me to houses that you don't even have the listing of, that I can in theory just walk into myself? What is that value proposition gonna be? You have to educate these people on why you need to be there for them. The knowledge that you have in regards to towns, school districts, property taxes, development, tax grievances, how good your negotiating marketing skills are, all these different things that give you value, the resources that you have, the network that you have to make sure that these people get a quality house at a fair number on the terms that they are looking for. And you're acting as an advisor to them, and your skill set and what you do for them is so valuable that it makes sense for them to enter into buyer broker agreement and you secure whatever that is, the 2%, 2.5%, 3%, whatever commission that you're looking for. Just out of the gate, I don't recommend you say, hey, really nice to meet you, just met you through a Zillow call, sign here. I don't think that's the best way to go about doing it. You never just meet somebody on the first date, pop out with the ring and say, I want to marry you. You don't. You want to date a little first, right? That's what I suggest you do. So essentially what you do is you'd meet somebody, you start to build rapport, you start showing them a few houses. When you go to that one house, you tell them, listen, I just need you to sign this in case you end up making an offer. You do that on a house by house basis. Maybe you start doing that on the second house, feel it out. After a while, once you've built enough value with these people, because you're going to have this value prop and you're going to be delivering, they're going to say to you, hey, do we have to sign these every time we go into a house? No, we don't. We can sign an exclusive agreement that sets us up for 30 days, 60 days, 120 days, whatever it is. But the point is, instead of just being an agent who's emailing offers in and never showing up, it's going to elevate the level of buyer agent who's really going to be putting in work, is going to have market knowledge, is going to be pulling comps for people, doing market analysis, and all these things that an agent who's representing a buyer should be doing. So the most important question is, if you are an agent who is bringing a buyer, how to make an offer and how you get paid. Now, the first is net to seller offer. So let's say there's a scenario where it's a 0% listing. The listing agent is getting commission. You have no idea what it is. Your people want to make an offer. They are comfortable paying $500,000. So what you would do is you have to get paid. You have an agreement with them that you're going to get 2%. What you're going to do is you're going to present the offer and you're going to present a net to seller number. So what does that mean? You're going to go and you're going to say, okay, listen, I'm going to present an offer for $500,000 minus your 2% commission, which is $10,000. So net to seller is $490,000. So your buyer is purchasing, they're spending $500,000, they're comfortable with that. You are building in your 2% commission, and the seller is ultimately gonna get $490,000 minus the commission off of this number that the listing agent is charging for his or her services. What are the potential drawbacks to that? If you're out there and you're in an environment where the house is extremely competitive and your people are comfortable with $500,000 and you're gonna be net $490,000, there's a chance that they could lose the house because of that $10,000 delta. But that all, again, depends on your skill set, your relationship with the listing agent, how well you pull information out, how well you understand the market, and ultimately how much your buyers trust you. Another option is buyer pays. It's a competitive market. You want to go in there guns a-blazing. They want to offer $500,000. They want to make sure all of that is going to the seller, so it increases their likelihood of them getting the property. But they still have a buyer broker agreement signed with the agent, and the agent's going to get 2%. It's a $500,000 offer. 2% is $10,000. So essentially, the $10,000 worth of commission is going to be going on top of the $500,000 offer, and they're going to have to pay that as well. Again, in a hot market or in a hot house, this is something you might have to do. And you as the buyer agent have to make sure that you're delivering enough value to be worth that 2%, or in this case, $10,000. Now let's talk about listing agents for a second. This has the potential to really make good, savvy listing agents a lot of money. How is that? If you're a good listing agent and you would typically list at 4%, 2 and 2, or maybe 5%, or maybe 6% and put out 3 and take 3, you have the ability, especially if it's a hot house, to capitalize with this system. Let's think about this for a minute. When you cut out all the hoopla, a 0% listing is essentially an office exclusive where it's not out on the market for everybody to see. You can use this to your advantage. So if you have a house that you know is a hot house and you're gonna have a ton of people coming into this house trying to go direct, and you can charge 4%, and you can do an amazing job and offer a great service and bring in 40, 50, 60, 70 people over the weekend to an open house, and they come direct to you, you're gonna capitalize and you're gonna get the full 4%. Another option is, depending on the scenario, you can wheel and deal with agents. So if you know that in that black box you have 4% commission or 5% commission or 6% commission, and you have an agent who obviously needs to get paid, and you're trying to work out the numbers of the deal to make sure that everybody is happy in the scenario, you could essentially bargain with the commission that you have in that black box in order to get the deal done. So if you have 4% commission in the black box and you thought, this is gonna be a hot listing, I'm gonna get so many people coming to me directly, I'm gonna do a great job, I'm gonna get the seller top dollar, and I'm gonna gonna get to keep all the commission and everybody wins. And unfortunately, something happens. Let's say rates tick up a half a point or a quarter a point. Something happens and you misjudged and it's not quite as hot of a house as you thought it was. And as a result, you're not getting enough action. And you have people bringing in offers, but the offers are lower, sellers looking for more money, whatever it is. Remember, obviously the agent that's bringing somebody needs to get paid, and you have that commission that you can use and say, hey, you know what? I know we're X amount of dollars apart. I know that you have to get paid and that you're either making a net offer or your people are gonna have to pay you on top and it's an additional burden that they can't pay. I'll give you 2% from my end to make it work. So for agents that are into actually selling, wheeling and dealing and pushing the limits, this can be a great thing. A, it enables you to get more deals done, and then B, it also enables you to make more money when you can while still serving the seller. All right, so since we're talking about all the angles of this, there is a possibility this turns into a shit show. At the very beginning, when the public isn't really aware, you're gonna have astute listing agents who are listing at 4%. And what's gonna happen is the buyers are all of a sudden gonna start losing deals when they're using other agents to represent them. And they could, in theory, start going directly to the listing agent. And the listing agent at the beginning would be making 4% and everybody would be happy. But then what could possibly happen is, since so many agents aren't doing business, now you'll get more agents going to sellers or going on calls on listing appointments saying, hey, we'll put out the 0% listing, but instead of taking 3 or 4% on my end, I'm only gonna list at 2. So I'm gonna list at 2, I'm gonna give out 0. And that could just basically be a shit show for everybody, because in my opinion, everybody loses. So when you only have 2% on the back end, there's nothing you can barter with or give out. So as a result, you're still gonna get more people coming to the listing agents. It's not gonna be getting as much exposure to the property as it should. So the seller's trying to save money by cutting costs, but what they're actually doing is costing themselves money because they're not getting the maximum exposure because agents aren't bringing their people to the property because they're afraid that they're not gonna get paid. So any number of things can happen. I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. All I know is when things get stirred up, the people that embrace this ultimately end up rising to the top, become subject matter experts, and make more money. So best advice I can give anybody is talk to your broker, look online, talk to the powers that be, learn as much as you possibly can about the 0% listing, how it works, test it out. You might bomb on a couple of things, but test it out and see exactly how it works, because the person or people that get this wired are gonna have 12 to 18 months of absolutely crushing it. That's always how it works until the rest of the market catches up and it becomes normalized. Hope you guys like this. Leave me comments down below. Any questions, I'll reply.